Dolan was once the most feared dragon in the world, but after being betrayed by his allies, he is reincarnated as a newborn baby and must learn what it means to be human. The story begins with the human army successfully binding the mightiest dragon of this fantasy world in chains. Their so-called hero mercilessly drives his blade through the dragon's heart. The dragon doesn't understand why the humans are trying to subdue him after all. He remembers being their ally. He refrains from attacking, still considering them friends, and only asks to be spared from such cruel treatment. The lonely dragon, having existed for so long, no longer desires to fight these insignificant creatures. He offers little resistance and accepts his fate. As he crumbles away, he breaks his shackles and looks up at the sky, begging the gods for eternal peace for his soul. However, the gods seem to have other plans. Instead of sending Dolan to the underworld, they place his soul in the cycle of life and death, reincarnating him as a newborn human baby. When Dolan first opens his eyes, he finds himself gazing at an ordinary man and woman. The woman, excited to see her baby's eyes open, names him Dolan. She introduces herself as his mother, and the man beside her as his father. She also mentions that Dolan has an older brother. Judging by their joyful faces, Dolan assumes he's been reborn into a happy family. As time passes, Dolan grows into a tall young swordsman who enjoys the simple pleasures of his village life. One day, as he's admiring the sunset, a girl named Eri runs up to him. Dolan glances at her, and then at the calm village behind her. Feeling a deep sense of peace and contentment, Eri notices his subtle smile and asks if something's bothering him. He assures her everything's fine, and together, they head back to the village. I think Dolan is just silently being thankful to the gods for gifting him with this peaceful life, instead of giving him the endless sleep he once sought. He currently lives in a small village named Varen, which is situated on the north border of the continental kingdom of Arcrest. After his death as a dragon, he was born here as a human, and has been spending his days here ever since. The only industry here is agriculture, so Dolan too is an agriculturist, a farmer. Every day, he wakes up by the ray of sunlight coming through the blinds, and then goes out into the fields to work on his farm. This is the only way to earn his daily bread, and he doesn't complain because he gets plenty of water and food to eat this way. After having lunch alone with some bread and soup, Dolan heads out again in the village. Just like every other anime, if you are 15 years old, you are considered an adult. But are you, Bill? But anyway, Dolan turned 15 a year ago, so he left his home to live on his own as an adult, although he stays in the same village. He goes to the nearby forest with his older brother, and uses his trusty fishing rod to catch some fish. Dolan's brother reminds him that he will have to go investigate the swamp near their village tomorrow. Dolan explains why there is even a need to investigate the swamp, telling us that since last month, the lizards from that swamp have disappeared, and that might change the entire ecosystem around it. Dolan's brother doesn't want Dolan to go to such a dangerous place alone, as it was supposed to be Garrison's job originally. Dolan doesn't want to step back from his responsibilities, and the only reason he is helping the elders is because the captain and the others are busy guarding the village. Dolan's brother offers to go with him as he cares for his brother's safety. But Dolan is a grown man at the age of 16 and doesn't want to cause his older brother any trouble. He promises his brother that he will be just fine, telling him not to worry as he will be only going to the swamp to check out the place and nothing else. He manages to catch loads of big fish and brings back a whole bucket of them. On his way back, he meets up with his two friends, Malida and Albert, who become amazed to see the sheer numbers of fish he has caught all by himself. Malida doesn't get why Dolan went out fishing instead of preparing for the investigation. In reply, Dolan claims that he has been preparing little by little for the past several days, and assures her that he will be fine. He also thanks her for helping him by persuading the village chief and the other elders into letting him take this job. Malida thanks Dolan back, saying that he is the one who has always been helping her with her and Albert's training. Speaking of which, Dolan asks both Malida and Albert if they are heading out soon. Malada replies in the affirmative, informing Dolan that they have a meeting about the next training session for the little ones soon, and will have to leave the village for it. But Albert tells Dolan to not worry about it, and advises him to prioritize his investigation. Dolan takes his leave from his friends and heads back home. He guts a fish and heavily seasons it with salt. While preparing the fish, he tells us about the monsters residing around this village. They are called the bandits, and because this is a far side village, there aren't enough soldiers around to give protection to the villagers. So, the villagers are more or less expected to help each other in protecting themselves. Dolan prepares all of the fish he captured and lets them dry out in the sun. The young girl from earlier, Eri, comes at his front door, reminding him that today is Dolan's magic practice day. Dolan asks Eri if she came here only to get him, and she gives the excuse that she was just passing by. Anyway, Dolan heads outside and goes to his grandma's house to train. In front of his grandma and Eri, he demonstrates how magic exists in this world. He recites a basic magic spell by saying the phrase, "Laws of power, hear my voice. Become an arrow and pierce my foe." Right after, he shouts energy bolt, which literally releases an energy bolt that blasts the dummy into bits. Dolan's grandma Magaru is impressed at Dolan's offensive magic, as she has always been, and commends the boy for understanding the fundamentals well. Dolan gives all the credit to the old lady, telling her that he is only so good thanks to her teachings. Now that his offensive magic training has come to an end, Lady Magaru decides to make him practice magical medicines, which he is apparently worst at. After spending a long time studying and practicing magical medicines, Dolan meets an oddly attractive woman in the evening. The village chief introduces the woman as Christina, a young noble lady who will be staying at their village for the next couple of days. Dolan shakes hands with Christina, and immediately realizes that she is someone very strong and skilled. Dolan goes to his parents' house to have dinner with them, and there it is revealed that he has a younger brother named Marco. Dolan's dad suggests Dolan get a wife since he has been pretty lonely lately. Dolan expresses his desire to be single a little longer, and his dad respects it, telling him that he is free to make his own decisions as he is an adult now. Marco mentions the swamp investigation, which worries Papa and Mama Dolan, and Dolan assures all of them that everything will be fine, and he will return safely with a great story to tell them. The next morning, the captain of the village offers to accompany Dolan, but Malada stops him from doing so because he has other duties to fulfill. The nun of the village, Letitia, gives Dolan a simple goddess's blessing. His grandma Magaru comes there, informing him that he might end up running into trouble, as that is what her fortune-telling showed her. So, she tells him to be careful out there. Just before Dolan is about to leave, Eri gives him a lunchbox, telling him to eat it on the road. He thanks everyone for being so wholesome, and then leaves for the journey. He walks the entire way, stopping several times to drink and rest. He explains to us why the disappearance of the lizards affects his village. Apparently, the lizards in the swamp occasionally interacted with the village, but when they disappeared, it just felt odd to Dolan. So, the lizard's disappearance actually affected Dolan and not the village, and that is the reason why he himself volunteered to investigate what happened. He reaches the swamp, not knowing what he might discover there, and places his hand on the ground, instantly figuring out why the lizards are no longer living here. According to his analysis, the Earth's elemental power has gotten too strong, and the water's elemental power has weakened, and that is why the lizards have moved away. Dolan remembers the fortune-telling of Lady Magaru, and knowing that her foretelling is almost never wrong, he suspects that there's something that has deliberately caused the change of the elemental power levels. At that moment, he senses a strong presence nearby, and brings out his sword to fight it. Under the current conditions, only strong monsters can reside here. So Dolan can only imagine how strong this unseen monster is. The monster is a lamia, a species that looks half human, half snake. The lamia seems to not have any battle experience at all, so she just moves her hands around, making her look like a total clown. Before Dolan can misunderstand and attack her, she makes it clear to him that she doesn't want to fight him. At that moment, a giant earth elemental monster emerges behind them and attacks the Lamia. Dolan reacts quickly and cuts the hand of the earth elemental. He hides behind a giant mushroom with the Lamia and tells her that the only reason the elemental has emerged is the same reason the lizards also left this place: the change in the elemental power levels. In any case, Dolan will have to deal with the monster. But first he introduces himself to the Lamia, learning that her name is Selena. Selena has the ability to use magic, so Dolan suggests she fight the elemental alongside him. She hesitates to work together with a human she has just met, but Dolan's aura is just too great for him to refuse. So, she ends up joining him in his fight and helps him subdue the elemental. Dolan uses his sword to deflect any attacks coming towards Selena, and Selena casts a giant magic spell, summoning a gigantic snake that holds down the elemental. This buys Dolan enough time to close the gap between him and the elemental. With swift speed, he leaps towards the elemental and imbues his sword with draconic magic, cutting the monster down perfectly. The sand reforms back with earth, and some gets splashed at Selena, giving the viewers quite the fan service. Moving along, Dolan becomes properly acquainted with Selena, this time encamps nearby with her at night. Selena is happy to see that there is a human who isn't afraid of her appearance. Dolan, being Earth's most feared dragon, once met much more stranger creatures, and that explains why he isn't scared of anything at all. Anyway, Selena explains that the only reason she came to the swamp was to find a husband for herself, as she became an adult after turning 17. Speaking of which, Lamias need strong men as their husbands because the regular ones die from their poison. She keeps giving subtle hints to Dolan that they should get married and have babies, but Dolan shows no interest at all, being the Chad he is. He proceeds to make the stew following his mom's recipe and serves it to Selena, who is overwhelmed by the flavor of this delicacy. Seeing Dolan praise his mom, Selena asks him if he loves his family a lot. Dolan agrees and pities the lonely dragon he once was. The next morning, he takes his leave. Wishing Selena the best of luck on finding a partner, he gives her some of his life energy as a parting gift. But it turns out to be too strong for her, as his life energy is still of a dragon. As the sun rises, he once again admires its beauty for a second, and parts his ways with Selena, telling her to visit his home anytime. This was the end of the first part of this series. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching. Bye.